Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's presentation. We'll be discussing alternate spray booth designs, thinking outside the box. My name is Tony Moreno. I'm the Inside Sales Manager for Colmet Engineered Finishing Solutions. Thank you once again for joining. We're going to go ahead and get started with the presentation. And we are in Rockwall, Texas. This is our facility here. We are in the beautiful town of Rockwall, Texas. It's approximately 20 miles east of Dallas-Fort Worth area. We have an open door policy. You can contact us for details as far as getting to our building. Our business is separated into three main business segments. The first one would be our core and catalog equipment. Second one is engineered projects, or what we call inside is EP. And then we also have the RP filtration products. We will be focusing today on the core catalog equipment and a little bit on the engineered project EP side of it. Our core and catalog equipment consists of core products that we have manufactured over the last couple of decades, which are spray booths, ovens, powder booths, along with slightly modified core or catalog booths. We've got engineered projects that are typically highly engineered components that will be incorporated into a system or are highly custom to fit the customer's needs. And the RP filtration product line, we originally acquisitioned this in 2017. We integrated in our manufacturing plant in Rockwall, Texas in 2018. And we're kind of focusing on growing the business by incorporating the filter product line into our paint booths. This gives us the ability to offer special programs like our W-Series 5-year warranty program, which warranties the booth or the spray booth and the AMUs. And as far as we are concerned, we are the only manufacturer that builds both the spray equipment and the filter media. So just to give you guys a presentation overview, we will be discussing about spray booths, their function of it, the airflow designation, and also the airflow requirements. Colmet Designs, we have -S standards or catalog booths, some structural design standards that we classify our booths with, and then we will have a time where we will talk about deviations from the standards. And then application-specific designs. So first slide here is what we've got is why is a spray booth required? There's numerous reasons of why a spray booth is required. I would like to review a few points here, but mentioning here, we can see that they are needed to confine and evacuate particulate and vapors. They can also provide a safe work environment for employees and provide a clean environment to minimize contamination. There is a long list that we can kind of go over, but overall it comes down to because OSHA and NFPA say so. A spray booth consists of a work area or a compartment where spraying will take place, an exhaust chamber with filter media, as you can see here on the top right corner of your screen, which will catch particulate, and an exhaust fan that will have ductwork and exhaust any air out to the exterior of the building. Spray booths can be open-faced, they can be enclosed, they can be pressurized. It all depends on if the customer just wants to apply a color to the part or they want to provide a Class A finish. And we can manufacture all kinds of booths. The spray booths are typically designated by a direction of airflow, and we have a few, but it comes down to maybe just two here. It's a cross draft, which airflow flows horizontally. We can introduce the air straight from one end and exhaust out the other, or we can introduce air towards the front and down from the top and then down and cross flow. Then we have our downdraft airflow, which is typically vertically coming from the top, introduced in from the top, and then flows down and out through the exhaust plenums on the pit or on the exhaust flames on the sides adjacent to the floor. The volume of airflow is designated by OSHA and NFPA. Now, we're not experts here, but here are quick highlights that we use to design our spray booths. Spray booths should not be less than 100 linear feet per minute. When we have electrostatic spraying, we cannot have anything less than 60 linear feet per minute. And then the required airflow velocities ranging from 50 to 250 linear feet per minute into the openings of any spray booth. Also, OSHA says dilute solvent vapors need to be at least 25% to the lower explosive limit, or the LEL, and should not exceed 25%. These are some of the highlights for the OSHA and NFPA requirements. There's other areas that we focus on designing our spray booths, but again, this is our interpretation of the codes. Give me a second here. Okay, so Colmet standard designs, we offer a wide range of standard booths that are pre-engineered, or -S booths. These orders can be sent directly to manufacturing. These booths have been drawn, they have been detailed, the drawings, the customer drawings have been established, a customer packet has been set, and they can be offered for quick delivery depending on our workload. We can typically send these booths out within a few days, typically around 10 days. And then we have some design standards for our structure. We have 3 different settings on the structure, which is formed 10-gauge material. This is our standard duty. We have a laser cut, precision folded, and nut and bolt assembly that will support the booth walls and the ceiling. It's a self-supported structure to support the booth, and it's fastened with 5/16 bolts. The only thing is that it has a limitation on the width and the height, which is 20 foot wide, 20 foot tall. We can't place air makeup units on top of these structures. They require a separate structure for that, or we can integrate our internal air makeup unit system. Then you cannot also have any booth mounted operator lifts or any conveyor systems or crane slots on these type of structures. On the heavy duty, very similar to the standard duty, however, we incorporate a beam structure to our formed material, and they also have a limitation of 20 foot wide and 20 foot tall. However, because of the beam structures, we are able to allow the air makeup unit to be located on top of the booth. You can't do man lifts or any kind of conveyor supports or crane slots. On the extreme duty, however, we have strictly I-beam constructions with trusses at times. They utilize half-inch bolts, and there's no limit on the width or the height. You can place air makeup units on top. You can incorporate the man lifts to the booth. You can also incorporate the conveyor system or a crane slot on these type of structures. So going down to thinking outside the box, we have a few examples on design challenges and our solutions. So the first one that we have was, this is a typical standard booth that we were going to supply to the customer. However, they had immovable building structures on the way, and there was no other place to place this spray booth. So our solution to this was a special notch on the booth that accommodated the location of the booth, and it went around the structure of the building. A deviation was made to a typical standard design booth, and we just incorporated a 3 foot by 6 foot notch. This particular booth was 28 foot wide, 12 foot tall, and 40 foot deep. Another design challenge that we had here was a customer had an overhead crane that needed to maneuver the parts in and out of the booth. It actually lifted the parts as they would roll in. They would lift up the parts and then lower the parts in there. But we had an overhead crane that obviously we couldn't move. And then also the open crane slot would increase airflow requirements and needed to upsize the exhaust system and the air makeup unit system. So what we offered was a deviation was made to the standard booth design, and we incorporated pneumatic doors to close on and off the crane slot, so we didn't have to account for the airflow here. We could get away. We can not have to increase the CFM or the air to the air makeup unit. As you can see here, our pneumatic system was operating. This was pre-startup opening and closing, so we weren't, after the startup, we were able to sequence the doors properly. But this particular booth was 25 foot wide, 15 foot tall, and 68 foot deep. This booth also was flashed off, as you can see on your left picture here, was flashed off to the building structure to allow access from outside the building. Another thinking outside the box booth or challenge was an overhead power and free conveyor system. This system here had an overhead conveyor system that had 30-foot long parts that must have the ability to pass through the enclosed spray booth. Typically, we would do a conveyor opening, but this particular part was real large. That was going to increase the airflow of the booth. The exhaust system had to be bigger. The air makeup unit had to be bigger, and the flow, and because of the opening, the flow wouldn't be proper. A roll-up door was required. However, with the conveyor system being on the way, we provided the customer a solution with a hydraulic actuated side wall door. The doors rolled down into a pit area and then allowed the part to go in and out of the paint booth, and it allowed the part to pass through the spray booth as needed. We didn't have to account for the airflow on the opening for the part because it was able to close, and then the airflow was the way it needed. This particular booth, the overall size was 16 wide, 12 foot tall, 40 foot deep. Nothing special about the size. However, the challenge was a really wide door on the side wall. On the next example of thinking outside the box is the customer required an outdoor style booth to match the existing buildings. The structure had to be capable of withstanding 139 mile/hour coastline winds. The customer didn't have any floor space inside their facility to have the spray booth, so they had to extend. They had to extend out, and what we did was incorporated our booth structure and the building structure with our booths, and created created a booth environment and an external building structure as well. These booths were designed to withhold coastline winds, seismic 4 or Class D, and also up to a 38-pound snow load. But depending on where you're located, we will engineer your product or your outdoor booth as needed. The booth had originally a design of a product door, like a bifold door. However, to match the buildings, the customer then upgraded to a roll-up door, as you can see on the far left bottom corner of your screen, which is the left side building. That's the paint booth. The external skin color matched the other buildings in the real estate, and then a control box was also incorporated in here to allow the operators some time to control the booth, balance the booth, have a control area, have a small office space before they access the paint booth. There's another design challenge that was thinking outside the box. We have customer required environmental control for application process. High energy costs would be incurred with standard exhaust design. The available fuel source was only propane. So what we offered the customer was a spray booth. The spray booth needed to be 20 foot wide, 20 foot tall, and 80 foot long. The required CFM was 80,000. But because they had a propane and the gas consumption was going to be high, we had the airflow at 20% supply and 20% exhaust, and we had dedicated recirculating fans, which recirculated the remaining of the air, which was 64,000. So we had a full 80 1,000 CFM going inside the spray area. However, only 20% was applied and 20% was exhausted. The recirculating fans were monitored with LEL sensors to ensure that the 25% LEL wasn't exceeded. The operators did require to utilize approved PPE or personal protection equipment, and this solution to the customer resulted in an overall reduction in operating costs. Gas consumption, energy was recirculated, so we were going to have exhaust fans either way, so we just recirculated the air back into the paint booth. Again, this booth was 20 foot wide, 20 foot tall, 80 foot deep. If you ever have the need to have a customer where they have limited fuel sources or anything like that, also electric air makeup units, we can have recirculating booths as well. Another recirculating booth that we use is a booth that requires temperature and humidity control. We will recommend that you recirculate the air that you have already tempered with, that you have already brought up to temperature and have brought up to the humidity specs, and recirculate that air. Don't just exhaust it out. You know, we can recirculate it and reuse it and be more efficient with the airflow or with the air. Another thinking outside the box design challenge was this is not too unique, but I mean we had a very unique part racking geometry, which was a triangular shape, as you can see on these pictures here. There was very limited floor space for product doors, so we couldn't incorporate product doors. Product doors are typically rectangular shape or square shape. The axis required to both sides of rack for powder application. So what we offered was a modified down booth that would flow from one end and across with a collector on the opposite end that would flow the air one way, and then one operator can be on one side and then the other operator could be on the other. And it had triangular shape product entry. So they were opposing with each other. They improved the powder collection and application efficiency, custom booth openings to minimize overall airflow design considerations. So we only calculated the airflow design based on the part opening required. On a typical design, we would have done a square design and then added more airflow to it. This booth was a 16-foot wide, 9-foot tall, and a 16-foot deep booth. And again, these are just examples of design challenges or booths that were thinking outside the box. Not necessarily this is what we do. Think outside the box. Let us know what your challenge is. Let us come up with a engineered finishing solution to meet the customer needs. All you have to do is call us. Okay, on this particular booth, we had a design challenge that it was gonna require a custom enclosure needed for a robotic application. A downdraft airflow was desired, but they had no ability to excavate for pit-style exhaust. So here's an example of what the booth looked like at the end. We had elevated floor-mounted exhaust flames, which allowed for downdraft airflow, and it had bump outs for robots to reduce the overall booth airflow requirements. Platforms were provided for manual operators to access the booth. This booth here was 20-foot wide, 18-foot tall, and 30-foot deep. As you can see, the bump out added an additional 5 feet on each end, approximately, or I think it was actually the 5 feet on each for total for the ends. The LED light was provided with dimmable LEDs, higher LEDs on whenever the manual operation was in process, and then they would lower the LED whenever the robotic application was being processed. Also, we provided observation windows on the sides of the booth so that they could see how the application was going whenever the robot application was going in place. On the next design challenge that we have was very large and heavy parts for hydro energy industry. So the requirement was to access all the areas of the coating application for the part to go around. what we provided was a solution which was an overhead crane used to maneuver parts around the whole booth. We had to do an open top spray booth. This particular booth was real large. It was 40 foot wide. It had 40 foot wide doors, and it was 12 foot tall with 50 foot working depth. The airflow was introduced at the front corners and were exhausting out by the system on the back and created a cross flow action. Once the fans kicked on, they went through the filter media and exhausted out the rear wall of the booth, as you can see on the drawings here. We incorporated lights on the side walls as much as possible because we had limited lighting on the top and on the back wall as well, where we had the filter media, and then on top we had additional lights pointing down at the part or at the paint area so that the applicator could see a little better. These are booths that we designed. Just let us know again what your challenge is. We can design around the part and figure out what we can do. This particular door was I want to call it a trifold bifold door because it had 6 door leaves. It had an access door on the product door and also access doors on the exhaust plenum. So the operator could go in through an access door. You can kind of see it on the plan view on top, on the front where the doors are, the product doors. We had an access door on the product door. So the operator, we didn't have to go and open doors, the really wide doors, to get inside the booth when they were in the front. They could access through that access door on the product door itself. So again, very unique setup here, and a good solution for the customer. Customer is real happy with the solution. Then we have a part, a really large scale part that needed to be coated. They also needed the ability to blast and coat without moving the part. And then on top of that, they required this booth to be temperature and humidity controlled. So this particular booth, it was like a 3-in-1, a spray booth, temperature and humidity control, and a blast booth. So this booth here, what we offered was a mega booth. I call it the Godzilla booth because this booth, it's by the ocean, and the booth design was designed for blast and paint modes, along with temperature and humidity control, to recirculating the air in spray mode. As you can see on the picture in the middle, we had dedicated recirc fans, exhaust fans, blasting equipment, and temperature and humidity controlled air makeup units to supply air to the booth and have a cross flow action on this particular booth. The weighted curtains allowed the booth to be sectioned off into 3 independent zones. We had two LED light fixtures on each zone. They could control the lights how they needed, depending on the area they were working on. It had to be designed to meet coastline winds and structure as well. So this particular booth went through a hurricane, and I think only an ARV fell out of the duct system. Besides that, the whole booth withheld a hurricane. It was Hurricane Harvey back a few years ago. This booth, the overall booth size was 135 foot wide, 60 foot tall, and 193 foot deep. So this booth here is definitely thinking outside the box. Again, what you got to do is just give us a call, and we will use our engineering team to design a solution for you. So in conclusion here, what I would like to go over is spray booths are available in all shapes and sizes like you were able to see. Coleman has a wide range of standard catalog booths available that can go out the door pretty quick. And Coleman can design application-specific solutions. Our contact information is available to you guys on our website. And right now, I would like to go over and see if you guys have any questions.
Oh, thank you, Tony. Thank you very much. We do have a few questions, and as I mentioned, feel free to type in any questions. We will grab those as we go along and make sure we answer everyone's questions. Just a few things, just as a reminder before we get to the questions. Don't forget to download the handout that's included on your toolbar there. And also too is that after this presentation's over, about an hour later, you'll receive a thank you note. Don't forget to download your certificate of attendance that is included in that thank you note. So with that said, I will go ahead and get started on some of our questions. Tony, you showed a picture of an open top spray booth. How effective is that?
Very effective. It removes all kinds of particulates out of the area. We did design the booths to meet all spray booth area per the NFPA and OSHA requirements.
Another question we have, is there an app form or anything to fill out and get a proposal?
On those particular booths, we do have a RFQ on our website, but this particular booths that are real custom, what we recommend is give us a call, reach one of our customer service guys or inside sales guys. Also, your regional guys can provide support, provide pictures. Pictures go a long way. We can usually start off with a concept layout, share designs, make sure we're all on the same page, and then kind of go from there. But yeah, reach out to us when you have a very specific request from a customer.
All righty, thank you very much. Another question is you mentioned that you have standard booths as well as the engineered. What is the normal delivery time for a standard type booth?
Standard type booth right now is Class 1, Class 2, which are IBs, EIBs, IBCs. Automotive booths are typically around 10 days. Depending on workload, that may increase a little bit, but it's typically around 10-day turnaround on standard booths.
All right, thank you, Tony. One more question here. What is the difference between a heavy duty and extreme duty? You know, what is the one major difference?
The major difference is that you have support steel on the ends. So this gives you the ability to integrate man lifts, crane slots, anything, and then also the ability to have any width or height that you need. The heavy duty structure starts typically at 10 feet from the end. So the front end is self-supported by the booth. You cannot incorporate crane slots or any additional weight on the one end. So that gives you the ability to put the air makeup unit somewhere in the middle, but it has a limitation of 20 foot wide and 20 foot tall. So the main difference is that support steel on the end to incorporate additional weight by either a crane slot, conveyor system, or man lifts.
All right, thank you, Tony. Another question here is can you design special booths for powder coating as well as liquid?
Yes, so one of the examples there, the special opening needed for that triangular shaped booth. We come across different scenarios. I know that I mainly showed spray booths and I'd only show that one powder application, but yes, we can definitely offer custom solutions for powder booths.
All right, and then again, you had mentioned who do they call if you have something that's not a standard and you might need some specific guidelines or some help to determine if it's something we could do. Who do they contact?
You can go to our website and you will be able to access our contact list as well. Preferably the inside sales team or your regional guys that are within your region to start the conversation on, hey, I have a special guy with a special part. What can you guys do? And then we'll start the conversation. What's the part? What size the booth will be needed? And then we can just go from there.
Thank you, Tony. I think that's all the questions we have, and it's a good thing you brought up the slide because, as Tony mentioned, there's a lot of different tools out there in addition to this who to call list. If you wouldn't mind, Tony, just going forward one slide. The Comet website has a lot of tools, not just the who to call list. There are a lot of different materials and sales literature and things you can download from the Comet website. So it's a good resource if you need any information on Comet. Kind of go to the site first, and a lot of times you can even type in and submit a question to us if you have a question. That can all be done via our website. Could you advance one more slide, Tony? As I had mentioned, the previous webinars that we've already finished, as well as our upcoming webinars, if you haven't registered, that can be done on our website as well. But also to everything that we've done, all the webinars that we've done, the PDFs, handouts of the presentations can be found on the COLMET website as well. All you do is click on the colmetsb.com website. You can go to, there's a tab at the top that says resources. If you click on that, you'll be able to see webinars, and all the PDFs from every one of our presentations are there as well. And then Tony, one more slide, please. And as we mentioned, this is being recorded, so we are posting everything to our COLMET YouTube channel. We now have over 29 plus videos there, very helpful videos, including everything from working with your control unit, all the presentations that we've done, as well as installation of filters and things like that. So a lot of good tools out there, especially when you have people, new hires or something. It's a good place to have them start there and go through that, all the materials that we provide there as well as on the website. And that concludes our webinar for today. We really appreciate you attending. And don't forget to download your certificate of attendance as well as your handout there on the toolbar. But thank you again for joining us. Oh, wait, we might have one more question. No, I think that's it. All right, thank you very much for joining us today. That will conclude our webinar.